You are now listening to WUMM 91.1 FM Machias, and welcome to the UMM Engage Clipper chat room. UMM's career talk show featuring alumni and employers and career professionals from around the state of Maine, region, and the country. My name is Joellen Scribner, and I'm the manager for the Career and Alumni Relations Center here at UMM, and I will be your host for this program. If you would like to ask a question of our alumni guests today about employment opportunities or others, please feel free to chat with me at jscribner@maine.edu, or you can call a question in at 255-1240. So let's get started. Today's alumni guest is Jack Frost, live today from the University of Maine at Machias campus. Jack graduated from the University of Maine at Machias in 1989 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Education program and is currently working as the Vice President and Director of Community Giving for Bar Harbor Bank and Trust. Thank you for taking the time to join us today, Jack.
Well, Joellen, it is a pleasure to be back in Machias. Thank you, and thank you for inviting me down.
And I am so glad that you traveled down to do this live with us today, so thank you for that.
I know, you gave me the option, but I like to get out of my comfort zone a little bit, and this is really outside my comfort zone. So, yeah, it's good to be on campus and meet some of the students and visit with people.
Great. So let's get started. So the first question I have for you is, tell me a little bit about yourself and your current position.
Oh, sure. I have graduated here a number of years ago, 1989, attended grad school at the University of Maine and had several different career opportunities in my past 27 years, including working with the Bar Harbor Bank and Trust the last 2 years as Director of Community Giving. And prior to that, I was with job training programs with the State of Maine Department of Labor programs for 14 years after I got out of grad school, and actually worked down this way right after grad school for helping out youth and adults with job training services. And then I got recruited away from the job training world and ended up at Maine Coast Hospital in Ellsworth as Director of Development and Executive Director of their foundation. And I did that for 11 years and then had the opportunity to go to the bank and get on the other side of philanthropy as heading up the bank's community giving. So it's been 3 major career shifts, but I've enjoyed all of it. People always ask me, what job do you like? Do you like your current job? I go, yeah, I've liked all my jobs. I've been very fortunate that way.
I think a lot of people get a little confused, too, about what a job is versus a career. And to me, it just looks like the steps have just continued throughout a career that you've built for yourself, which is now just this wonderful position that you have with the bank. So
definitely.
Yeah. So is this a management position, and do you supervise other departments?
It's a leadership position. I don't supervise anybody currently. Certainly have done that a fair amount in my past, but this is a very unique position at the bank, where I oversee all the bank's community giving across Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and we have a budget every year that we manage. And it's a challenging position in that we have several thousand nonprofits in the 3-state region, so we do get a lot of requests for support. So it's really a new adventure every day, and working with nonprofit leaders and board members across the 3-state region within our footprint of the bank.
So probably after today, you'll have a lot more requests.
It's you put yourself out there. Most of them, they know the people at the branch. We have very community-based bank, so our employees are very involved in the community where they work and live. So they tend to get a lot of direct requests, and then a lot of the larger requests get funneled up to my office for review by committee.
Mm-hmm. So. You kind of already mentioned this about, the progress in your career. So you didn't start at an entry-level position, but tell me a little bit about how you got this position.
Yeah, it's a good story, I think, for people to know. For me, it's been all about building relationships and all the jobs that I've had. And I worked for the hospital a long time. I did have a leadership position at the hospital, where I was part of all the hospital's board meetings. And our bank president, Curtis Simard, was on the board of Maine Coast Hospital, so he got to see me in action a bit and got to know me over a course of a couple of years. And of course, I knew other people that worked with the bank. I've been a customer of Bar Harbor Bank and Trust for 30 years, and so I knew a lot of people with the bank before. But Curtis had sort of given me the nudge one day about the idea of coming to work for the bank, and I made it pretty clear I was happy where I was, but if I was going to work for the bank, I would be most interested in looking at the job that I have, which is community giving. And they didn't have a particular position at that time that was full-time. So as the bank has grown, this was an opportunity where they did create this job, and I've been fortunate to do it the last 2 years.
Great. So tell me a little bit about your experiences at UNM and how that helped you to prepare for your current position.
Yeah, I think the key word I think about has been opportunities. When I was in college, I can always remember one of the professors, for whatever reason, it stuck out with me, and we were having a serious one-on-one conversation. I don't know if it's so serious, but it was conversation. I just remember it, and it was, Jack, life is all about opportunities, and I never forgot that, and it just resonated. So I have always looked at, what are the opportunities and how do you build connections, how do you build relationships. And so that's a lot of the work that I've done because of even working in the job training field and of course in development work, raising money for a large nonprofit. You have to connect with a lot of people. And so I've had the good fortune of working hard, putting myself out there, being open to a lot of people, getting to know a lot of people. And so it lends itself well to the work that I do now. I've served on lots of boards outside of my work. I got very involved with nonprofits from the time that I graduated out of UMaine grad school. I was asked at a pretty young age in my 20s to join a board. I really didn't know what that meant. I served on a board that now is Down East Community Partners, which operates a lot of programs across Hancock and Washington County. And at the time, the nonprofit that I was involved with was really overseeing just the Head Start programs and other child care programs, including a center right on campus here. So I really listened a lot and paid attention to what are the responsibilities of being on a board. And over the last 25 years, I built up a lot of knowledge and expertise, I guess you'd say, with the importance of giving back to the community and what the role of a board is and how that makes a difference for nonprofits to operate in a really positive way.
I really find it interesting, kind of the quote of, life is all about opportunities. And I talk a lot about that here at UMM with our students and alumni about, networking and how important that is, because you never know when you're going to meet somebody that's going to make a difference in your life. And you're talking about all of these different areas that you actually have developed in your career. And here on campus, I know that you were part of a club and or org here on campus. And so we're always trying to, in particularly when it comes to resume building, encouraging students to go to the networking events, but also to reach out a little bit further, do the internships, build your resume, volunteer, get involved in a club or a fraternity or sorority or something like that. In the athletics, develop your leadership skills. And we have this new program called the Engage Clipper program. And so we're actually doing credentialing now within our system.
Nice.
So we're looking at that to be kind of taking the lead in the state that we can help our students get that. It's not really a certification, but it's more of an opportunity for employers to see what students are doing outside the classroom, that they're really paying attention to all the things that are important as well in developing those kind of characteristics that a good professional would have. So tell us a little bit about what a typical day is like in this position.
Oh, every day. That's a good one. I mean, every day for me is, I typically have a very good idea of what I want to do, and then there's actually what I do. So the days can get rather long to get it all done, but I love it. it's really a job where every day new requests are coming in from nonprofits. So reviewing those requests very carefully, making a lot of phone calls back to nonprofits to get clarification, responding to emails we have over 500 employees. So a lot of them are making connections with me about a particular area that they want to talk about with their community giving in their region of the state, whether it's Maine, New Hampshire, or Vermont. And also, of course, the favorite part of my job is getting out and meeting directly with nonprofits. And sometimes that includes nonprofits that are reaching out, asking for support. And oftentimes it's meeting with nonprofits where we've done gifts, and I like to see how those dollars are being put to use, and just staying engaged at that level.
Do you have a specific criteria that you use when you're looking and assessing what the requests are that are coming in from the nonprofits?
Yeah,
that people might pay attention to if they wanted to apply?
You have good questions. You have good questions. That's a terrific question, and
I might want to apply myself.
Yeah, you might. I get that a lot too. The bank, we had when I joined the bank, not a real specific focus, so it's something I was really sort of charged with by the bank leaderships. How are we going to restructure our community giving? And we have really tried to focus more of our giving, not entirely, but our focus areas on education and workforce development, particularly with populations that need more financial support. And that can include helping nonprofits if they have internship positions, or if they're an educational institution themselves, whether it's a high school or it can be early childhood education on up. But that's our focus area with Bar Harbor Bank and Trust, and we do support a lot of other causes, but that's the niche that we've sort of tied in. And one of the reasons we did that, and you and I were talking about it before we went on air, across the 3-state region, we have, based on some research that we did, about 100,000 adults that started some post-secondary education but never completed it. And so they don't have that credential. And when we really understood more about this, we're like, we could help be part of the solution here. Of course, we're not going to solve it all ourselves, but we want to send the message that it's important to help and try to make a difference for people that they can get to a point where they can get a credential. And it's the same story across the 3-state region, northern New England, that so many businesses need more people, and we have 24 job openings right now. So it's not like it's different from any other industry. The finance, banking industry, all different industries right now are looking at a lot of retirements with the baby boomers and how are we going to fill these positions. And there are a lot of job openings, but a lot of those openings do require some level of certification to advanced degrees.
So when we're looking at, what kind of a qualification is necessary for a job like yours, you've talked about you being in sales, and then you were in philanthropy.
You got it.
And now you're in community giving. So is there any specific training or professional development that has helped you along the way and develop the skills that you've acquired for today?
Yeah, I mean, for me, honestly, it's years of experience, as we talked, even outside of my previous career positions. Really getting involved with nonprofits has been a huge advantage for me. It's it resonates very quickly with nonprofit leaders, whether they're executive directors or development professionals or board members, people that are trying to build support for their nonprofits. They understand very quickly when they talk to me that I have a sense of, I know what it's like. It's not easy reaching out and asking for support, and a lot of nonprofits need that support outside of, say, grant funding or government funding that they receive. So I have built just this knowledge base, I guess you would say, over time, and have a lot of compassion for what a wide variety of nonprofits are say struggling with, but what their challenges are. And I have, I guess the other thing is I have a broad base of interests. I mentioned that the bank, we focus more on education and workforce development, but I've been involved with so many nonprofits, whether they're a private school, public school, land conservation, Head Start programs, as I mentioned, so many different local food pantry, so many different nonprofits that I've connected with over the years that I appreciate all of what they're doing. So I guess, for me, it's just having that passion. It's a really significant interest of mine. My advanced degree at UMaine was public administration. So it sort of all is tied together. As I sat in a lot of board meetings the last 25 years before I joined the bank, I'm like, someday I know this is going to come back to help me a great deal. And now it really is.
That's great. And, we talk a little bit about the professionalism and also, the educational pieces of this. But there's also kind of a personal characteristics that are really important when you're trying to connect with people, communication and leadership and those kind of people skills. So can you talk a little bit about what kind of personal qualities or abilities you think are important to be successful in this job?
Well, I think you touched on it. It's communication. I got the bank's communication award a year ago, last November. I was very surprised by that. But for me, I have to communicate in a variety of ways, and I have to do it quickly, oftentimes respond as quickly as I can, and whether that's through email, direct phone, in person. And when you're trying to do that across the footprint of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, that can be a challenge. So for me, has been about communication. It's the key part of my job, and I like to help nonprofits as much as I can, including providing advising them on how they might approach their development activities, whether that's planned giving or annual fund or capital campaigns. A lot of different things that a lot of nonprofit folks do want more feedback on.
Great. So what do you, and I think you probably already kind of touched base on this, but what part of this job do you find most satisfying?
Yeah, for me, it's being able to know that I'm making a difference. And a lot of times that's making and building those connections across the region with a variety of individuals who are trying to make their communities stronger, and knowing that I can provide some advice where on a pretty regular basis people are saying, wow, thank you. I'm glad you called, but I wasn't really expecting this level of feedback or level of engagement. And so that's extremely rewarding. It's a lot more than just saying, oh, we just made a gift of $500 or whatever the amount might be. It's trying to offer additional support as well. And we have a great team at Bar Harbor Bank and Trust where we do specialize in some nonprofit services, helping them set up planned giving programs and working on charitable gifts through estate plans that, frankly, the bank was so supportive of me in that role when I was at the hospital in Ellsworth raising money over the years. And now it's being part of the other side and helping a lot of other nonprofits. So with the most satisfying part, what are the most challenging parts? Yeah, the challenging part is just the scale of it, because as I mentioned, we have a few thousand nonprofits in the footprint. So there's a lot of activity with that. It's just the sheer number of calls and coming out to things like this, which I love to do and hate to say no to.
Just like sitting in the living room having a cup of coffee with you, Jack.
It is, and I love to do it, and I love to connect. Last week I was in Rutland, Vermont, and Woodstock and Quechee, and yet when you get back, or if you're checking your email on the road, not while you're driving, then it's just a lot, and it's all good, but you have to balance it.
Yeah. So when you're talking about a few thousand individuals, is there an opportunity for people to put in an application? Like, is it a yearly process, or is it something that people can get support ongoing, or do they actually have to apply every year for that support? Yeah,
terrific question again. And we have a system we're going to where we're going to be asking for significant requests, those that are, say, above $500 or $1,000, that we'll be reviewing grant requests on a quarterly basis. We've been doing it monthly. We haven't set a particular deadline, but we've asked nonprofits really to look out 8 or 9 months in advance, 8 or 9 weeks in advance of an event they're doing, say if it's a sponsorship or if it's something that they're working on, like a capital campaign, and they need, say they've got a matching grant opportunity. It's not so helpful to ask us the week before. But we do have information on our website at barharbor.bank, and right on the website under the About Us tab, there's a section on community giving, and there is a common proposal form there that people can access, and I always tell folks if they have questions to reach out.
Great. So you mentioned that there are 24 positions right now on the website available.
Yes.
And but also, what types of advancements are in the career field that Bar Harbor Bank and Trust offer? I mean, is there room for movement and promotion, and how does that all work within the bank?
Yeah. Also on our website, I was taking a closer look at it last night, knowing I was coming here today, but of course I spend a fair amount of time on it. But there are constant posts of individuals at our company that have been promoted, and so I see a lot of advancement, and including people in the marketing division, a young woman who's now 25 that's doing an amazing job for us at Bar Harbor Bank and Trust, and she just transitioned into a new position from what she was doing, and that's happening across the company in Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. I know. And I just talked to another gentleman this morning. Don't get to talk to him that much. He started managing a branch for us in Nashua, New Hampshire, and now he's in charge of our call center. Super guy, and just great to see people stepping up and looking at other opportunities. When I talked to him today, he said, "Jack, I can't believe how quick it happened. 2 weeks ago I was branch manager, and now I'm head of the call center." And I'm like, well, you put yourself out there.
You worked hard, you've earned it.
He did.
Yeah, great. So how do you see careers in this type of field in banking or your position or within the bank? How do you see that changing in the future?
Well, banking has had to come a long ways in a short time, just like most industry with the technology. So now, there's a lot on the backside of banking around fraud protection. We were talking yesterday with the bank president about our new credit cards, which has all the latest chip technology. And so we have to, as a bank, stay on top of all these things. And when you go to your local branch, you don't always see what's happening in the background. So we have a team of people that work in IT, that work in fraud protection, quality, facilities management, to obviously the branches, our trust division, where we have folks that are in administrative support positions all the way up to attorneys, managing really specific trust, estate trusts for families and companies. Great.
So we've talked about the positions a little bit, so we'll go by that one.
Sure.
But what would you have for advice for people entering the field today?
Specifically our field of finance and banking? Yeah, I think...
I mean, if you were a student here at UMM and you were, I guess you don't really need to be a business major, but, if you were really interested in getting in this type of business into banking, what advice would you give to them today?
I would say get to spend some time on the websites, get to know a person locally within, say, a branch environment, go to a variety of financial institutions to introduce yourself, and then, really do as much as you can to get your resume in order, to build a cover letter that you've had other people look at, so that you can get feedback. I know my senior year here, I spent a lot of time my final semester working on my resume and cover letters. And I think that paid off, and it's something I think people should keep up over time as well. There's, and include those things that you've done outside of just the academics that you mentioned before. But not being shy about knocking on doors and reaching out, finding a connection where, reaching out directly to Human Resources Department and introducing yourself, asking if there's a way to set up a time to meet, and showing initiative really is going to separate you Oftentimes.
Showing you're interested, maybe even looking at a job, shadowing opportunity or something like that that might be available. I think it all goes back to networking again, getting out there and meeting people.
I think, it's important for people really to think about why. Why is it they want to work at a financial institution, and be pretty careful about that, because that's going to be a lot of what people are looking for. Why us?
Mm-hmm.
If you, whatever degree you have, why is it that you're interested in this? And if you're having a hard time answering that question yourself, you want to do the work to talk to a lot of people and really hone in on why this. Is it because of where the business is located? Is it because of somebody you know? Is it because just this is something you've thought about for a long time? Why is it?
I think that's a great question, and oftentimes does come up in interviews.
Oh, definitely.
And people
if
definitely
you're stunned at that one in the interview,
yeah,
you're going to have to be hard pressed to get beyond that.
Absolutely. So, does Bar Harbor Bank and Trust offer professional development for their current staff that are already working?
They do. They offer a lot. They've been very good with me because, of course, I had no banking background other than being a customer. Paying attention to my personal finances as much as I can, but it's something where I came in and quickly understood that I was going to have to do more training, in the sense that the banks all are required to, respond to certain guidelines, policies, procedures. So I wasn't up to date on those things. So the bank was very supportive in sending me away to some training. It happened to be in Miami in March, and I didn't say no, so that was good.
Yeah.
But I think it's all different divisions. Whatever it is, the bank does a lot of training and creating opportunities where they want people to show interest and express what areas they need more help in. And oftentimes, of course, leaders at the bank are advising staff, like, this is really something for you to be thinking about, and we want you to attend this training.
Yeah, we when we talk about professional development, and you're talking about you weren't trained in banking,
right?
But you have transferable skills that you have learned along the way. We talk about those too. So when people say, "I really don't have any experience in that area," doesn't mean that they haven't developed skills in a different type of position that might be applicable in this type of a position.
Yeah, and a good point that I had limited training with job training when I stepped into that job after UMaine Machias in grad school. And I had no training to speak of in being an executive director of a foundation when I stepped into my position at the hospital. So it was being open and being eager and to learn, and people had certain confidence, like, we know you can do this job, but you have to sort of put yourself out there. It was a big decision for me when I left job training and went to work for the hospital. The hospital president and CEO said, "Look, I want to go to lunch and I want to talk to you about this job." And next thing I knew, I was applying for this job as the director of the foundation, which had no money. And he said, "Well, we're going to give you 2 years to make it work." And I probably never should have taken that job, right? I mean, people are like, "What are you doing?" But I was there for 11 years, and it was a great career. And I would not have the job at the bank today without the career I had at the hospital.
Right, yeah. So, do you think it would be a benefit for our current students to seek career advice by attending career workshops or sessions on campus that we offer here while they're attending school, to better prepare themselves for the professional world?
Oh, yes. Well, I think there was only one answer to that one, Joellen. But, I certainly try to make myself available when those opportunities come up. And not just if it's on campus, but off campus as well. I know the Department of Labor does a good job with different, whether it's in Bangor, Machias, or other locations where they hold job fairs. And even if you're not ready to really be seriously looking for a job, I would still go. I mean, shake hands, take business cards, ask a lot of key questions about what it's like to work at their employer and their place of employment, and what they have for openings, a variety of openings.
So, if you could do things all over again, would you choose the same path for yourself?
Well, I would. I mean, I came from a relatively rural background in Maine. I worked hard, and as I started with the conversation earlier, with you, it has been about opportunities, and I think for me, I've tried to make the most of them and also give back to the community as much as I can through civic organizations and serving on boards and showing up and flipping pancakes at the Rotary Pancake Breakfast and doing a lot of other things. So, yeah, it's been a great path for me, and I think it's important for everybody to find their way.
Well, great. So this concludes our alumni portion of the UMM Engage Clipper chat room today, and I want to thank Jack for joining us live here from Machias. Please stay with me as we get ready to talk with Jack on the employer chat room portion of the show coming up shortly. Today you are listening to WUMM 91.1 FM Machias. We'll be back shortly with the second half of our show. We are back, and you are listening to WUMM 91.1 FM Machias. If you have any questions for our guest today, please feel free to chat with me at jscribner@maine.edu, or you can call the chat room at 255-1240. So let's get started. Welcome back, Jack, and thank you again for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. This has been fun.
Yeah, we're having a good time.
You're really good at this, so I'm trying to catch up to you.
We're having a good time. So, Jack, tell us a little bit about Bar Harbor Bank and Trust, the organization itself, and some of the services that it provides and its mission, and what they can, as an employee, can expect for support from that organization.
Well, you've got a lot there in that one,
I
Joellen,
know.
so
Do you want me to break it down?
I'll take a few breaths, but, the bank has a rich history, like a lot of institutions in Maine, where we've had been founded in 1887, offer a full range of financial services and support those with both families, also businesses and nonprofits, as I mentioned earlier. We really work hard to support all of our branches, which are going to be expanding. As of tomorrow night, we pick up 8 more branches from People's United Bank. That is not new news to some people, but we are going to be expanding from Waterville to Orono, where we'll have 8 branches, which has been a huge undertaking for the bank. We have a lot of people working behind the scenes. A lot of customers, of course, coming over with People's United over to Bar Harbor Bank and Trust, and so all of the data conversion happens this weekend, and a lot of people are going to be working hard to make sure that goes terrific. So it's a bank that we're a community bank, but we also look, where we can expand and provide tremendous customer service across our footprint in Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. You mentioned about our mission. Our mission specifically is to encourage and support the personal and professional development of employees, which I find interesting. That's at the front end of our mission statement, but it goes on to talk about, of course, the dedication we have to consistent customer service at the highest level for all customers, and recognize our responsibility to be an active participant within our community that leads to growth and prosperity. So it's a rather long mission statement, but I think it does cover exactly what we do, and it specifically mentions, as we talked earlier this afternoon, about how we invest in our people that work at the business, but that leads to providing a better customer service and better products for all the folks who are our customers.
And the work environment is very important. So as our students are listening today, to know that you actually have that kind of support at that organization before they even apply would be very important for them to be looking into.
Yeah, it's a great environment. It's great to be part of a team that everybody is working for the common cause, and our leadership at the bank is very focused on where we want to be, the best bank we possibly can be, the most productive bank in northern New England. So we're every day, as our bank president says, moving rocks is how we describe it, versus say some people maybe say goals or things that we're working on specifically, but we call them our rocks, and we have a lot to move every day, and making sure that we do the best job for our customers.
Great. So talking about careers and looking at students too, and opportunities for them as undergraduates, does the bank actually offer internship opportunities for individuals, and how many a year would you say that? I mean, is it in one branch or the main branch? I mean, where is the main branch for the bank?
I mean, the main branch is in Bar Harbor, where our bank president, Kerr Samard, is, and a number of bank executives. So it's right in our branch in downtown Bar Harbor.
Okay.
But we have a number of locations where we have Operations Center in Ellsworth, and we have, a major facility, call center in Newport, New Hampshire. We just invested a lot in that center. So do they offer internships, like a number of internships a year that could be spread across the banks, or I
is it?
think it's reaching out again to HR. I know specifically we had a student this year in the finance, working with the finance team right in Bar Harbor. And I know we're doing really as good a job as we can of getting that individual to come work with us after they graduate. So,
which is another networking opportunity.
Yes, so we just encourage people to reach out to our human resources. We also have a lot of positions that people can step into in the summer, because across northern New England, there are a lot of people that live here seasonally, and most of them are here in the summer. So we are more active in the summer, and more of our employees, of course, want to take vacation time. So we have a lot of positions open that are, at the customer relationship level, at the front end of the service at the branches. So even stepping into those jobs and just showing initiative there and doing a great job, you can learn a lot, and a lot of people have opportunities from there to move into other positions.
So probably for the most part, the internships would be more during the summer than throughout the rest of the year, unless, of course, they worked with the bank for other individual things.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, more students have time then too.
Right.
But if it's something unique where it's just a temporary piece that's part of a class that they want to step into. I'm working with a student, he's a full-time employee in our branch in New London, New Hampshire. He's working towards his graduate degree, and I'm helping him on a senior project that he's required to do. It's a thesis, and he's doing it around community giving and trying to find ways to measure impact. And so I had never met Tyler before, but he had reached out to me, which was terrific, and he said, would I be willing to help guide him in this process? And I'm like, what am I going to say?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to help you with that. But that's he's been terrific, and I don't sort of envy him for having to do his thesis right now, but he's going to get it done, and we're doing it in a way that hopefully will help my work as well, so that we can maybe do a better job of measuring impact of how our dollars are being used, especially in that area we're focused on in education and workforce development.
Right. So, it's kind of like an informational interview today.
It's good.
Yep. And so for job shadowing, we've talked about, and you've been a part of our alumni spotlight.
Yes. And
our mentoring program. And so is that an opportunity where students could reach out to you to, maybe get some career advice? Or
definitely.
Maybe is it possible for them to job shadow you a little bit, unofficially, not doing an internship, just kind of see what the daily bolts of what you're doing?
I'd clear that with my HR to be sure, but I'm sure we could work it out. My work is not. I don't handle a lot of. They don't let me touch, the financial products at the bank.
Yeah.
So, I don't get to go into the vault. So my job is rather unique, and I work in an environment that's outside of the branch in our financial services center in Ellsworth, which is terrific for me. I travel a lot, but when I'm working in Ellsworth, I also live in Ellsworth.
So, what is the hiring process like? Now, just kind of comparing with UMM. Now, if somebody were to apply here for a position, we would have establish a committee, a hiring committee, and then there could be 2 or 3 or 4 people. There could be anything from interviewing with the committee to having an open meeting where people would have to come in and maybe even do like a presentation of sorts. And I'm sure it's in relation to what the type of position you are applying for, as some positions would not require that. But to come into a professional position, would it be more like an online application? I mean, how would somebody apply to come into Bar Harbor Bank and Trust.
Yeah, we have a lot of information on our website, and as I mentioned, we have 24 job openings right now, from everything from facilities to wealth administration. So it's getting on the website and looking at those jobs, and then reaching out to human resources. It can be submitting a resume directly online, but oftentimes I would encourage, a level of a call to a member of our human resources team, or if you know a member of the bank that you could touch base with first.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a pretty, I would think, a pretty traditional way of applying for a job today with a corporation.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be committee focused, as
No.
a lot of educational institutions, higher education institutions would do, and particularly with hiring
Right.
people that have advanced degrees and things like that.
There's a lot of, because it is a bank, and the type of work we do is a lot of confidentiality.
Yes.
So we do obviously do a fair amount of screening. I'm
Sure.
sure I passed the screening. They let me in, but
Well, that's true. And, in a lot of educational institutions nowadays, too,
yeah.
there's the criminal background checks as
Right.
well. So, yeah, that's
We
screening.
do a lot of training around it. When
Yeah.
I joined the bank, I have to go through all the training that anybody that's working in the retail side of the bank at a branch to the trust office. There's a lot of annual workshops that we have to go through and take tests on, and there's a lot of that today. My wife is a guidance counselor in Ellsworth, Maine for the last 25 years, and I know the school personnel also have these trainings that they have to do every year.
So, but you also met your wife here at UMM. Can I just
did.
mention that?
She's sending me
Yes,
texts.
Another love connection here at UMM.
She's outside
yes.
sending me texts saying I'm doing a good. We have at least one listener, Joellen.
Isn't it wonderful?
But yeah, we had a chance to meet here in 1986.
Yeah.
Before almost all your students here were born. We now have a daughter in college and senior year, so that's been fun. And
Yeah.
but it's great to be on campus and seeing the activity here. It brings back a lot of memories, certainly.
Yeah, and it's nice to see people not only successful in their careers, but successful with their family lives as well.
That's the balance that
Yes.
I'm always challenged with.
Yeah.
Like most people.
Yeah. So, what kind of travel with this type of position? I mean, you mentioned that, you're kind of in the New England area or thereabouts. And so, as the Vice President and Director of Community Giving, does it cover all of those
Right.
branches?
Yes, it
So
covers
what kind of travel are you
50
expected to
plus
do?
branches.
Yeah.
Also covers our trust division, commercial division, senior executive team that I work with as well, because senior executive team also gets requests directly because they're out in the community a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to travel across Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, but I don't get to do it as much as I probably would like to, because there's a lot to do right behind the scenes.
Right. So you're filtering everything, right through, your main branch for all of that anyway. So if people are out there and were interested in finding out about the community giving, they would just do it through the branch office, and they would just all come in through the same process.
Yeah, we encourage people to get to build a relationship at the branch level, or whether it's the financial services level, not just getting to know me, because I'm one person, and as I mentioned, there are about 2,000 or more nonprofits across the 3-state region, and I can't begin to build a relationship with I'm trying to build a relationship with every one of them, but it's just, you have to be practical about it. And some nonprofits are very small with a very niche activity that they're doing, and then you've got others like a community hospital that is a multi-million-dollar basically organization that's also raising hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year. So the nonprofits vary so widely.
So I think we touched base on that a little bit, but with your employees, I should say, can they make a recommendation? I mean, do you accept recommendations from them?
Our employees are not shy about making recommendations, so they're also reaching out to me and letting me know. They have their eyes and ears, there in the local communities, on a more constant basis. Like I was in Rutland last week and several other communities in Vermont, but I'm talking a lot to our employees about what nonprofits they're involved with and which nonprofits have a longer history and how they're viewed in the community. What struggles do they have, those types of things.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of benefit packages? I think we all look at, when we're looking at salary, oftentimes we don't get the benefit packages that we really are hoping for. But when we have families and things like that, we need health insurance, we want vacation, we want sick time. So what kind of benefit packages does the bank provide for their employees?
A complete one. It covers everything from 401k, which, if you're in the nonprofit world, it's 403b. But 401k, where the bank is providing a match, not so long after you are employed at the bank, you can become eligible for that. Health savings accounts. Actually, with our bank, there's an employee stock option that we obviously pretty wise to take part in. And then the health coverage, whether it's medical, dental, vision, life, disability. We also have a volunteer program aspect of the bank that we feel is very important. We think it's pretty generous. We have employees that are volunteering in the community, and they can actually 3 days during the year, or up to, 24 hours a year, that they can actually be clocked in and be volunteering at a site with a nonprofit. So that's somewhat unusual. Of course, we're encouraging community involvement, and we don't tell individuals where they have to volunteer or what they should volunteer for. That's up to them to take the initiative on. If they want advice, they can call me anytime. But there are plenty of opportunities out there to volunteer, and we do have a culture where that's really important. And I think that's the other part of what probably your question is, and how I would view it is, what is the culture of the organization? And there have been people who've run into challenges in their life, people that I've become friends with at the bank, just like any place you would be, whether it's a health issue or death in the family. The leadership from the top to the bottom is just so supportive when some type of crisis happens. You don't have to wonder about that. And actually, when my dad suddenly was in the hospital when I was working in a different career, and a person from this bank that I now work for reached out and brought me some travel things, water and food, and said, geez, we're thinking about you, and we hope your dad's going to be okay. Thankfully he was, but was in southern Maine and needed major surgery, and it was a challenging time for our family, and that's the type of organization that we have.
So I think that's important for people to, note about this conversation too, is that besides the salary, there are other benefits that are available in organizations such as yourself. And I know for UMM that we have partnerships within our community, and that we work with Bar Harbor Bank and Trust and other organizations as well that come in and support events like Special Olympics. I'm the area manager for Special Olympics, so we have people that come in for that, and also the career fairs. And last year we had a career fair, and we actually took some of the vendors, we call them, but employers out, and took them into the classroom so they had a chance to directly talk with students that weren't able to make it into the career fair. So I know that, for us here in this institution, that our community partnerships are very important to both sides, so that we both get a benefit from that.
Yeah, I think it's what makes, where we live so special, because there's such a sense of community across so many different regions of our state, and it's not unlike places I traveled in New Hampshire and Vermont. There's just a lot of community involvement in a lot of these towns and cities, and it makes all of these places really special places to live and work and play. And like I said, both from both sides of it, it's really important in these rural communities in particular, where we don't have the population to draw from. So we're very thankful for those connections. So what should an individual think about before applying for a position working for Bar Harbor Bank and Trust? Yeah, I did touch on, I got ahead of myself probably before.
Hey, that's okay. We can repeat that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. And to me, I just sort of thought of the key piece being why the bank, why this bank, or really honing in on that, because that's what's going to resonate. And then being able to really help share enough information in an interview process or through a cover letter and resume about what unique skills you bring. And I think a lot of employers want to know that their employees are engaged and they're interested and they have a life outside of work. Work ethic, working hard, wanting to, embrace whatever culture you're going into, and having a good sense of that. Some of the things I brought up about, being a supportive organization, and whether that's from one employee to another or to customers, you've got to find a way to have that resonate and give examples about how you've done that in your own life.
Now, there are other listeners today, hopefully,
yes,
throughout the system and the state of Maine.
We appreciate that.
So how many branches do you actually have? Because when we're talking UMM in this area, of course, we're looking for our students to have opportunities, but we're looking for all of our students in the system to have opportunities. So how many branches do you have in the state of Maine?
Well, today is going to be different than tomorrow.
Right, because you're going to have 8 more.
Yeah, we'll have more.
Yeah, so that's
we're
cool.
At, I think 55 branches.
55.
And then we also have a trust division in Maine called Bar Harbor Trust Services. And we have Charter Trust Company in New Hampshire. And then we have our financial division, which is in all 3 states, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont. So we have over 500 employees, and they're pretty well spread over the 3-state region. And we're, I talk a lot about the footprint, and when I mention that, it's the footprint of where our branches are. So we're not suggesting that we're providing retail banking services in every community across Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, but we are doing definitely quite a bit across the 3-state region with the different branches we have, and that's been terrific.
That's great. So tell us again what the website is if individuals would like to look into applying for Bar Harbor Bank and Trust.
Yeah, it's a real easy one to find. All you have to have is barharbor.bank, and you will get to our site, which obviously is very focused on the customers, but the About Us tab has a section there about employment, job openings, as well as benefits, and the piece that I manage around community giving is also under that About Us tab. So barharbor.bank.
Okay, great. So do you have any other advice that you would like to share today with our listeners?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I wrote, some thoughts down on that. I mean, and keeping it simple, I could go on for a while, but I mean, for me, it's keep it simple. And I put a note out that I had from, I had both Richard and Elsie Larson, which I'm sure they're listening.
They must be listening today. They must
if I mention anybody's name, it would be the Larsons. And I know Professor Larson was always, keep it simple. And he loved that KISS principle. But for me, it's, be kind, be engaged, be interesting, be positive. Those 4 things, I think, will take people a long ways. And I think most people, it's, as far as the work goes, the career side of things, it's, find what meaningful work is to you. And that's different for everybody. And, I think I found what it is for me in this job and other jobs I've had. I always look at how you're making a difference, whether, that's working in the fishing industry, to a school, public school system, or any level of career that you might go into. How is that meaningful to you and the world around you? And I think if you stay focused on that, it's going to probably pay great dividends and keep reminding you every day about, why you're getting up and how you're making a difference.
Great. Well, it's like I said a little earlier. It's like sitting in the living room and having a conversation with you over a cup of coffee. And if I drank coffee,
Right.
that would be true.
That would
right?
be, me too.
But it's been a great show, Jack. And
Thank
I
you.
just want to take this opportunity to thank Jack Frost from Bar Harbor Bank and Trust for joining us today on the Engage Clipper chat room here at the University of Maine at Machias. And I want to thank our listeners, where I hope that you will join us each week on Thursdays at 4 p.m. throughout the semester, where we will be talking with alumni and employers or discussing career topics with other professionals within the UMaine system and community. So next week we will be talking with Ed Prompion.
Awesome, great guy.
He's a great guy. He's retired district ranger for the National Park Service, and Therese Picard from Acadia National Park in Bar Harbor. So I hope that you'll join us. For more information, please feel free to email me at jscribner@maine.edu. This is Joellen Scribner, and you are listening to WUMM 91.1 FM Machias. Have a great day.